Hello, everyone, and welcome to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike. I'm here with Eli. Say hello, Eli.
Hello.
Eli, how are you doing today?
It is Saturday. It's Saturday. It's Sunday. Things are
It
going
really
well.
is. Somebody's back in time.
Shut your mouth. I have a cat on my lap, so all is well with the world.
All right. Ready to get into some questions to help illuminate you as a person for our viewers out there?
Oh, sure.
All right, Eli. What is your favorite dad or bad joke?
So many terrible options. I think maybe just because it's a classic. Did you hear about the vertically challenged fortune teller criminal who escaped from prison?
No.
He was the small medium at large.
No, gosh.
That's terrible. I know. It's just the worst.
Best kind of bad. All right. What movie will you never skip when channel surfing?
Um, I never skip. There's a part of me that like never wants to skip Secondhand Lions because it's got a weirdly kind of emotional spot. I don't think I'll skip.
It's got it's got that good nostalgia
It
juice in it.
really does. I don't think I'd skip like most Miyazaki anything like especially My Neighbor Totoro, just because again sweet nostalgia, um, and just all the feel goods.
Totally. So, what was your favorite book growing up that you'd like to be turned into a movie that hasn't already?
I would love to see. I'm gonna kind of cheat and use kind of a series because it's a huge sweeping series that, as far as I know, doesn't have any kind of film adaptations. But I would love to see any of the Dragonlance Chronicles or any of their big storylines be put to film.
Who's
Um,
the author on that series?
it was written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, I think, like 99% sure. And I think a few other authors have come in and written stuff to contribute to that universe. It's a high fantasy universe, kind of like if someone took a large scale D&D campaign and wrote it out in novel form. Um, and it's got like a kind of core cast of characters with kind of core series that push along the plot, and then it's got a bunch of um, not extraneous but additional novels kind of fleshing out the sides. Like all of the main characters have a backstory novel. Um, there's a couple of like side trilogies for other races. Like there's a
That's really
trilogy
fascinating.
that follows elves. There's a trilogy that follows minotaurs. Trinity trilogy, that word.
One of those T words.
One of those two words.
So, what is your favorite meal on a rainy day?
As much as I do like spaghetti, I probably had too much. I think it may go to um, peanut butter soup, which I realize sounds weird, but it is something my wife will make, which is super delicious. It's like this kind of peanut chicken stew. It's so
Uh,
good. It's so
that does
good.
sound very good. Since we're on the topic of food, what in your opinion, obviously, is the most overrated restaurant? Not bad, but the most overrated.
A restaurant or fast food place?
Either.
Um, In and Out. Fucking In and Out. It's so overrated. It's
It
so
really is.
so mediocre.
I think it's definitely one of those ones that it's kind of like I think I might have compared it to this in an earlier podcast episode, but it's kind of like Rick and Morty when it comes to the fans in the show. The show is great, but sometimes the fans just overhype the shit out of it and make it impossible for other people to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I obviously think Rick and Morty is considerably a better product than In and Out. I don't want people to get that impression. However, I think it's a fine product. I think it's just the fan base is considerably more overzealous than the product dictates, in our opinion. Clearly.
Yeah, I would agree. It's and I think that's really what colors it is that people like
Yeah.
shit their pants over it. I'm like, dude, you need to fucking mellow out. Like, it's not good.
Yeah,
I like Jack
there's
in the
been
Box.
too many conversations I've heard that involve going to In and Out as if it was the Grand Canyon. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, we gotta take this turnpike so we can go to In and Out. It's like it's a fast food restaurant. You wouldn't say that about any
it's
other.
a mediocre burger.
Yeah.
It's a mediocre burger and shit fries.
Oh, absolutely agree.
Fries are dog shit. They're bad.
The fries are the worst. I love how they pride themselves on the like having potatoes from certain areas, and they use the freshest potatoes, and you see them cutting it, and then they just burn the shit out of them so that you're just eating like toothpicks. It's just so good.
It's a goddamn travesty.
And they make you salt them yourself, or they put so little salt that you can't taste that there's salt on them.
Yeah, though I've heard of people having a similar issue with Five Guys. I've never had that experience. It's always been salty as shit. So, as God intended.
As God intended. God salts his fries. Everybody should know this.
Yeah, jeez, what's wrong with you people?
If you could guarantee one of your dreams would come true, which one would it be?
I would. What am I talking about? I'd be selfish. I would absolutely like get a big fat book deal, and I just kind of be set having like writing as a career indefinitely.
What do you think you would want to write about?
Nothing real. I would be writing science fiction fantasy. I might it'll lean towards aspects of realism, but I would never want to write nonfiction. That's absolutely not something I'm all that interested in.
If you could work any of the jobs you've done over the course of your life, which one would it be?
Does the pay stay the same?
You can choose it for pay, or you can choose it. It doesn't, or you can choose it for like enjoyment. But it's just which job would you want to go back and work?
So I wouldn't. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't mind going back to my last job. It has decent value to it in a way. But it's like
What was your last job?
My last job, I was working for a nonprofit at a homeless shelter, where we helped house and kind of help people who had a history of chronic homelessness and chronic mental health concerns and issues, find housing and get kind of help they need to get back on their feet and hopefully get kind of going.
Why would you want to go back to that job?
Couple of reasons. One, it was never, I'm not gonna say never boring, but you had some weird shit happen. And so it was very interesting comparative to the office job that I work right now. Not to say that social work doesn't have a mountain of paperwork and kind of dumb bureaucratic bullshit to go through, which is tedious as crap, but you did get to see kind of people at their worst, and you could see improvements made. It was also kind of a reality check, like, oh yeah, my life can be so much worse. Like, you know what? Realistically, I don't have it that fucking bad. And you could tell when you actually when stuff went through, when you got to kind of help someone who is really down and out. It's nice to see that kind of reflected back, I guess. But at the same time, you're dealing with people under tremendous amounts of stress. You're dealing with people who can turn on a dime and be incredibly hostile towards you. You're dealing with people who can be dysfunctional as fuck and really tiresome to try and help because they just want to drag their heels and not contribute. You can deal with people who have relapses and try as hard as you might. You can't make them do anything. You're not the police. You don't have legal authority. So interesting and rewarding, but super.
It comes at a huge cost.
Yeah, exactly. So very taxing as well.
Mm-hmm. What do you regret not having done before you graduated high school?
Interesting question. It's funny, as most people hate high school, and I actually didn't mind high school because I finally started to have a spine.
Before that, I walked around just hunchback, touching the floor with my
dragged
nipples.
myself around the ground like a lizard.
And greeted people with the traditional
Hi.
I'm here for my 7:30.
There's people I wish I'd kind of told some people off, honestly, or like a few opportunities that I probably could have had to like stand up for some people that I wish I'd taken.
And what had they done? Was it something, or like, was it standing up for somebody else, or was it standing up for yourself?
Mostly the second one. Most of the former. The high school, I didn't actually have many people shit talking me because it got. I had a very odd reputation that quickly spread like wildfire at no attempt of my own. Because there was
What
like
was the reputation?
so there's thanks to living in Fallon where there's nothing to do, backyard boxing was a thing because fuck it. And so one of the guys who is an absolute madman at boxing came into my martial arts class, and I beat the 9 pounds of shit out of him. Because turns out formal training beats backyard training.
To the surprise of everybody.
Yeah, to the shock and awe of everyone. So when I beat the 9 pounds of shit out of Kevin Spears, it got around that I did this, and so people suddenly had like a weird reverence of me. I was just like, what the hell's going on?
You were that guy.
You know, like,
It's not
hey,
he-
it's like I had people I hadn't talked to or had never actually like talked to me in class and be like, hey, you kick a lot of ass, and I'm like, thank you. Very perplexed.
So now that we know what you're glad you did, do you remember any of the things specifically that you wish you'd stood up for, whether it be other people or yourself?
Um, yeah, I kind of wish I'd stood up for myself with some of my friends because I let myself get kind of walked on by people and just like, well, it's good enough. I'll just kind of be quiet and hide off to the side.
Do you remember what the issues were over and why you kind of was it just because it was the path of least resistance? Was it something that you felt maybe they were right about, or
in little column A, little column B, I made an ass of myself. I said something very disparaging about someone's girlfriend at the time. It was a fucking boneheaded thing to fucking say, but I never like, and you know, her boyfriend appropriately got fucking pissed at me. And I don't fault him for that at all. But like, I wish I just to this point I'd be like, listen, I'm fucking sorry. I shouldn't have said it. Total cunt move. But either punch me in the face and let's get over this, or just, you know, let's just be done with it. There's no need for this.
what ended up happening between the two of you instead?
He doesn't talk to me. I haven't talked to him in years. The few times I've been in close proximity, he's looked at me like I'm diseased.
So that's something that if back then, if you believe you just kind of squared up with him and been like, I made a royal fool of myself, that's on me. Can we put this behind us? You think you've been able to salvage that relationship and still be
Maybe.
friends with that person today?
Maybe. There's a decent chance it still just ended up going a different direction, but yeah, it's like one of those things where it could have played it better, so to speak, you know. There was no need for it to be so to have a relationship kind of cripple and die, like suffer and die in under such animosity. There's just no need for that. It's stupid. And there's another friend I would have stood up for and probably told his girlfriend off, but like, listen, you're being a terrible person. Get out of his life. But those are the two that leap to mind, I think.
And that last one is kind of like the same thing of going the path of least resistance, and
It was one of those like, not my monkeys, not my circus. Like I don't need to get myself involved in someone else's affairs, you know.
yeah. Is it because of hindsight that you wish, because of like things that kind of went between those two people, or is it one of those things that even then you're like, man, this would have just been the right thing to do?
I think mostly just kind of hindsight and maturity. Like, I mean, you're stupid when you're 17. You're just dumb. Yeah. You're just a fucking idiot. Like, you might have glimpses of brilliance. You might have some flashes in the pan of intelligence. By and large, you make fucking stupid, boneheaded choices. And you think you're totally right, too, which is the worst part about it.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with the thinking you're right. I had a moment the other day where it's just like, I wish with the intelligence, the money, and the experience I have now, I wish I had the confidence and the not energy, but kind of oomph I had when I was younger to just be like, we're going to do this, and just, I mean, a lot of that comes with the stupidity, is that kind of bullheaded.
It's that kind of ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah, it's not only ignorance is bliss, but when you know so little, in your opinion, you understand it all, and so when that's part of the reason you think you're invincible is you believe you understand, or at least I believed I understood everything when I was younger. And so of course I can, do this and not die. I can do this and I'll come out on top. I can do this dumb thing and it'll be smart because I think it is. And so, when you have those, it never, you never think critically of those things because you don't have the experience or the kind of wisdom, or at least I didn't at that age, to, look at things under that kind of scope. But later you do, and at least for me, it like makes it harder to take, big steps, big leaps, and just be like, yeah, nothing bad's going to happen. It's because, like you've experienced things, bad things have happened, and you've seen, people that either when you were in high school or later, bad things happen to them under circumstances that you can like mold into being similar enough that you can see the danger on the wall.
Yeah.
So with that said, what do you wish you had started sooner? It's something that you have to be clear, it's something that you have to be doing currently or have done at some point that you wish you had just started doing.
I should start writing short stories sooner.
When did you start writing short stories?
Not very long ago. Like a year ago, year and change. No, mostly because why short stories?
Why specifically short stories? Yeah.
Harder to write. Harder for me to write. My brain goes in giant format. Like, I mean, probably it's what I grew up reading. Like, I grew up reading, multi-book series. I grew up reading, one of the first book series I remember is, crap. I just blanked on what it's called. But it's like a 7-book
Sounds like a
series.
very complex title. Crap, I can't remember what it's called. It's a hell of a book. I think it was written by, that's her name? It's a strong book series. I would highly recommend it out there to any...
Stab you.
600 miles away.
No, it's not Ivory Tower. I have to check.
I need to get some we'll be right back after these messages music.
Seventh Tower. There we go.
Seventh Tower by.
It's a book series by Garth Nix. It's a 7-book series.
That is a name, Garth Nix.
It's awesome.
That is just asking to get misspelled. It's like the most unique name I think I've heard that isn't made up. Like Northwest is a bullshit name, but Garth Nix is that's a person, but a very specific person. I don't know. I love that name. That name's fire.
Fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they write fantasies, because their name's fantasy.
Yeah. Because these sound like they belong in a giant cloak.
This is my warlock, Garth Nix.
Yes. Hello. Stuff like that. Stuff always came in series, I guess, and what I was reading. I mean, Aragon came in a series, Harry Potter came in a series, Lord of the Rings came in a series, Seventh Tower came in a series, Animorphs came in a series. And there's tons of them that I can think of. It's all came to Chronicles of Narnia, for God's sake.
So what is it, after having read all those books in a series, why is it that you... I understand why you got started in writing, bigger books and, bigger series and having, this kind of bigger quantum ideas, but what is it about a shorter story that you're finding you're enjoying writing now? Since, that is the way you kind of...
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They're hard. I would argue, at least for me, and plenty of people would argue the other way, but they are much harder to write because, in my opinion, it's very easy to tell a story in 50,000 words. Mm-hmm. It's way harder to tell a compelling story in 5. Because you have to, in that time, you have to make someone like your character. You have to introduce your character. You have to introduce a plot. You have to provide some kind of resolution. You have to provide some kind of stakes. You have to provide some kind of direction, some kind of motivation. Every component, you have to do it in a tenth the time. So it's if you can do that, how much easier is it to do? Expand it out. It's a joke
So
comparatively.
it kind of sounds like you're talking about something I learned going to um, college and getting my film degree. Is one of the things when in the screenwriting class, one of the things our professor talked about was for writing feature length things, all like feature length scripts, all you're doing is writing a bunch of shorts backed up into each other. Like each scene is its own, kind of story. Even in bigger movies, like even like in a feature film, each
Yep.
scene is its own, like except like a couple sparse ones that are just like connecting tissue.
Sure.
Each scene is its own kind of story. Obviously certain things are kind of amended and like bisected out because you've already introduced the character two scenes before, so you don't. There's little things you don't have, but by and large, it's the same kind of principle, and that's what he was recommending to all of us: is to work small. It's easier to get it made, and it's like a good kind of learning rubric of if you can do it small, then you can do it big. But like it's not always the same in the reverse. So it kind of sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Um,
Do you find after now having done, you've written a couple short stories now? Is that correct?
yeah.
After having done that now, are you seeing that as well for writing fiction, for like books and stuff like that? Of now that you've done a couple, when you're going back and doing bigger work or thinking about it, has it changed your kind of perspective?
A bit. Yeah. It it's very much kind of beat into my head that as often as you can, less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's plenty, and at least personally, I mean, there's plenty of people to argue like there's good times and people who can really pull off, wordy, flowery prose, and I'm like, it's not for me. That's that doesn't sit right with me. That's I I don't like it. Um, and I like to include enough detail outside of it that I feel like adding prose makes it harder for me. So as often as I can, and short stories just kind of honed that in. It's like less is
Yeah,
more, and
it takes
trust.
away.
And you can also trust your reader to have. You can play to the theater of the mind, as it were. Like you can, like one of the things I used to do is I love writing. I love writing action. I love writing combat. I love writing, a fist fight, just because
Mm-hmm.
it's something I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I know how it feels. I know how it sounds. I know what getting punched feels like. I know what throwing a punch looks like, feels like. I know what that kind of adrenaline feels like. So it's just something that has always kind of sung to me. But when I started, I wrote it out like blow by blow by blow by blow. And it took so much time because it's so wordy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you don't have to. You can kind of write like really key points, but you can, you don't have to enunciate effectively every jab, every cross. It's
Yeah.
like you can just have someone punch someone into a corner, and your reader can very easily visualize someone boxing someone into a corner. Um, Things like that.
And then I mean, that's one of the things that kind of you're reminding me of the way of I don't remember who it was talking about horror filmmaking specifically, that the best horror movies and the best monster movies are the ones where you see the monster the
The
latest in
least.
the film. Yeah, the least and the latest specifically. Like
Yeah.
Jaws, you don't actually see the shark until I think they're on the boat. And like there's a bunch of like, like talking about less is more, and also just like leaving it up to the audiences, letting their mental faculties run wild. Like when they think of the monster, it gets the darker it is, the less they know about it. Their mind makes up something far scarier than you can ever capture. And it sounds kind of similar to the way you're talking about fighting. Is like you can write it out long form where everything is exactly the way you want, but then like the reader gets kind of bored or is like
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, and the monotony of it. Where if you write less, they kind of fill it in with the best action line that they want to see, where you kind of get like it sounds like you're kind of creating a starting point and an ending point with any notable up or downhill changes that make a difference on who wins, and they kind of get to fill in the rest mentally with like the way it sort of plays out with the key points highlighted.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, that's a very good summation. That you provide key points, you provide tremendous power struggle. You provide kind of pivot points and kind of direct to them, but um, you don't make it super cut out. But it's like
Yeah.
he throws 6 punches between point A and point B. It's like, okay, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
We get it. He throws punches a lot.
um,
So now that we know what you wish you had started sooner, and we'll talk about this more in your main segment, because surprise, surprise, I think he's passionate about writing, folks. What do you wish you had ended sooner?
that's an interesting question.
Why, thank you.
Am I allowed to like pitch a behavior pattern? Does that work? As opposed to like, am I allowed to say I wish I stopped being a bitch earlier in life? Is that permissible?
I don't know. Are you still a bitch?
I'd like to think no, but occasionally, yes, I have my moments of bitch.
Is there an activity of bitchdom in particular that you would like to have ended sooner? Whether it
Actually,
be...
no. I've got it. We're good.
Okay.
I wish I had stopped always deferring to my parents earlier.
Hmm.
I wish that I had effectively grown a spine and stopped just deferring to what people told me to, because that seemed like the easier thing to do. I wish I'd stopped constantly taking the easy way out. Just like, oh, this is the path of
making
least
decisions
resistance.
for yourself as opposed to just asking people and crowdsourcing your next, life moments or, big decisions.
Yeah, like I wish I wish I just stopped kind of, oh, this is a trusted authority source. I'm gonna do what they say just because they
They're a
said
trusted
it.
authority source, yeah.
Yeah. Like I wish I just, and there's times where it's like I don't really want to do this, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And there's times where it's like, you just shut up and fucking deal. Absolutely,
Yeah.
there's always times like that, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like there's a bunch that I could have just said, no, that's not okay. Like, I know I'm not gonna do this. No, I don't
Hmm.
want to do this, etc., etc., etc. Um,
So, I'm the way this is sounding is as if that you no longer only listen to the voice except yourself, which I gather is not true. That this
no,
is something that, as opposed to, this is something that was 100-0 basically, where you would always listen to what other
yeah,
authority figures told you,
yeah.
and now you've mitigated it to some
I think it's
percentage that is
I
comfortable
I think
for
it's
you.
probably closer to like 50-50.
Yeah.
But yeah,
When do you think that was that changed for you, and what was it like? What was the watershed moment, the turning point, whatever you want to call it, where you started to change that metric? Do you think?
um, I think it's in large. I don't know if there's really a watershed moment to it. I don't know if there was ever like a singular, like
Aha.
there's no epiphany that I can really think of. That was like, this is like, yeah, I gotta fucking make my stand here. Gotta, like, no, it really wasn't some crazy moment where I'm like, that's not okay. But
Yeah,
like,
you didn't have high like a high drama moment of just like, you know
no,
what? No.
yeah, there was there was.
It turns out your life isn't a movie. You didn't tell Jack Nicholson that you
What if it
needed to
was
hear
a
the
movie?
truth. Yeah, but what if it wasn't?
Yeah, no, it's I think in large part, I think it's large that is largely due to Artemis and just kind of
Who
my
is?
wife. Sorry for those of you listening. Artemis is my lovely wife, and I think she kind of rubbed off on me just like not blindly listening to authority and not blindly being okay with everything, because not everything is okay to be blindly okay with.
Yeah.
And like I've just kind of noticed, and she's noticed too, that's like there's a lot more times where I'm like, yeah, no, we're not gonna deal with that shit. And I mean, I still always try and play shit to the middle. Like I'm not the guy who, under most circumstances, is gonna dig my heels in and be like, I ain't moving. Like,
No.
fuck you, come to me. But I I'm better about moving less and trying to move people to me more. So it is more of genuine compromise and not just deferral.
Hmm.
Um, but I think I have the stones to occasionally dig my heels in and go, that's not okay.
That's really cool. Yeah. It's very interesting how, obviously, I'm assuming a fair amount of people at home, and myself included, was hoping for like a moment where it was like, and then this happened, and I was like,
I think.
no,
All right.
fuck you. But it is so cool, and so I mean, this is life. This isn't as much as both of us are writers of fictional universes of our own, and obviously those moments are dope and so cinematic, but they're not realistic. The reality is, you talk to people that you love and trust that want the best for you, and slowly over time, your rock, the you that is a rock gets like eroded,
Yeah.
like by
stuff
just
the only. So in my opinion, I think 90% of the average person's change comes gradually. It's the little things that weigh in that sand you down effectively, right?
yeah
No one's occasionally you get bigger impact moments of. So if the normal day to day is, let's say, a river, slowly eroding rock. Let's say there's some big moments. There's some big flashbulb memories, right? And those are like a chisel. We're taking off chunks, but fundamentally we're not breaking the rock. I think the only times that
you got in a car accident,
and
got married.
I would say then there's like huge life events, and oftentimes, unfortunately, traumatic life events that totally
Like getting
upset the
married.
apple cart and actually genuinely change people, like fundamentally shake them.
Yeah.
And that's a rock fell down on the riverbank and split you in half. So we gotta work with what's left.
Some bigger rock came over and was like just showing off his weight and just broke off a piece of your rock.
Yeah, exactly. And
Speaking of breaking off a piece of your rock, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one sentence, what would it be, and when in your life would it be?
I think I'd probably go back when I was like 12 or 13, because junior high sucked.
As it does for most people.
As it does for most people. And I hadn't found the spine that came from going to martial arts yet. So, okay, goodbye, kid. And I would probably go back and tell myself, like, it's okay to be different. I guess it's okay to be different. It's okay to be you.
What about yourself at that time did you feel was different?
As a nerd living in a town of hicks, like I don't know. I mean, nerd bashing was a thing in junior high. I felt like an outlier. Like I felt weird.
Yeah.
I felt like for a long time the only things I was capable of, like even in high school, like the only things I was capable of was, just kind of hitting people and being a half decent person to cheat off of on a test.
That's not usually the combo you see in movies.
Really not.
Those are usually two different characters that are playing that role.
It really is. And that got less egregious as I learned, because like I remember really liking video games and like really liking reading and stuff. It's like that wasn't the norm, I thought, for a long time, and then I realized more and more people like. Because I kind of caught the tail end before nerds were socially acceptable and cool, when they're like closet nerd. Like I learned, like one of my friends for a long time was Nathan, and he was super popular. Turns out he was a closet nerd. He played WoW and just never told anyone. It's like, what the fuck? Like that's illegal.
You can't do that.
People like you. What the fuck?
You have to suffer the consequences if you're going to play WoW.
What is this? What is this garbage? You play a hunter. What the fuck?
Oh, jeez, a hunter.
Hunt hard.
So before we go to our first commercial break, if you could make sure listeners of this podcast heard one song, which song would it be?
Can I pitch two for very different reasons?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll pitch one. Okay, fine. Don't let me cheat. I heard it very recently. And I'm like, wow, this song is great. One, because it is a really good song. And two, because I feel like it's a very positive song that isn't unrealistic, I guess. Because you hear, anecdotally, I feel like a lot of the kind of positive message songs are like blindly positive, if that makes sense.
The I did it so you can too, says the pop star on a talk
Yeah,
show to
exactly.
everybody. You're just like, yeah, okay, Katy Perry, I'll just fucking
I'll
rock
get
up
right
and
on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, and so the song's called "I Like Myself Most of the Time" by K-Flame. And so it is very positive. Like, I'm not too skinny or too fat for that matter. Like,
Hmm.
it's got a lot of messages like that. It's like, hey, you're fine. Um, and it points out that a lot of people kind of fake enjoying themselves because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it
Hey,
has a
how are you doing? Oh, I'm great.
yeah, like I see photos of proposals that I know are empty gestures, things like that. Just kind of pointing out like we do shit to look like we're doing great and doing good. It's like
We
it's
do
okay.
shit to look like we're doing shit.
Yeah, it so profound. I know. Um,
No, I mean it really is. It's one of those. It sounds absurd, but I mean that really is like a lot of people. It feels like, I mean, I'm guilty of this plenty myself. Is I'm doing something like, oh look, I'm doing something. It's like you're doing something, but are you doing something?
yeah,
It,
and, and so, but the kind of linchpin and why I would plug this song especially is it's got a third verse and it goes like way downbeat. It's not as poppy as the first bit. It's like I don't like myself some of the time. Um, it's like when I drink so much that I start seeing stars. When I make music and tell myself that it's art. When I when I'm too proud to ask for help and I isolate myself when life gets hard.
yeah.
It's like yeah, there's times I don't like myself. And just I don't know, points out big frameworks for times that people absolutely hate themselves. I'm like, okay, there's
As yeah, you turned me on to the song previously to this,
yep.
and I have listened to it a fair amount. It is very beautiful. It's got the song musically slaps, but also has like a very strong message that is the way K Flay sings. It's not like cake levels of sing talking, but it's very understandable. It's not
Mm-hmm.
particularly fast, and it's not, you know, like hyper artsy leaning where it's just like, are those words or just beluga whales? And it is a very strong message and a very beautiful one, and one that I believe is very easily understood. So
Yeah.
as we send it to our first commercial break, I would highly recommend people out there skip this commercial and go listen to that song.
Go listen to that song instead. Way better.
K Flay, I like myself most of the time. Get on it. All right, see you guys back in a bit. And we're back. Thank you very much for either enjoying K Flay or listening to our sponsor. So, Eli,
Mm.
what is your passion?
For those who've been hit in the head with a rock since I've been talking, I like this thing called writing.
Heard of it?
Deal with it.
So, what is it about writing that you love so much?
Um, you get to make what you want. It is kind of cliche as that sounds. Um, but it's kind of sky's the ceiling. No one gets to tell you what's wrong. Or I mean, at least
Have you
I'm
ever
not at
wanted
a
to
point
kill a
where no one gets
small
to tell me.
woodland
Yeah,
creature or
that's
break a
completely
window
wrong.
but not have the physical strength?
Um,
I know I have.
and
I mean, you
Now
can do the same
introducing
thing with Legos.
rock.
How is it different than Legos?
Rock comes
for
in a
you?
variation of sizes and ready to use. Simply put rock in your hand,
Sure.
raise it back to
However,
your level,
it's
and
much harder
release.
to tell a narrative
See?
with Legos.
You've got it.
It's much harder to build
This ad does
Godzilla
not
with
condone the
Legos.
violence against small woodland
It's
creatures or windows, nor will it be held
much
liable
harder
for any
to
inability of use when coming into
create
contact with
story with
paper.
Legos. That being said, I am kind of wildly envious of the crazy sculptures that some people have made with Legos, like the people who made like a 9 foot tall Godzilla statue with Legos.
I was
Baller.
gonna say you're talking about making. I think
I
I would
said
argue that it's
easier.
actually easier to make Godzilla with Legos than
I
it
can
is
make
to
I
not.
can make Godzilla in 4 paragraphs. I can write that in a minute. You ain't making no 9 foot Godzilla statue in a minute.
Not a good looking one anyway.
I don't think you're making it. Period. Like you just
With a crane and enough Legos, buddy, I'm gonna make this happen. Prove you wrong. When did you realize that you were this passionate about writing 9-foot Godzillas in 4 minutes?
I've always had weird, like, I've always walked around and talked to myself. Like, it's in probably forever. Like, I've always, it's like, I remember going to, like, our family's cabin. I would walk around to the woods and, like, basically talk out a weird story with myself. And I had no basis for it. It didn't come from something I read. I wasn't pantomiming something. I was just kind of talking out weird characters.
Were you ever a character in your own stories that you were walking around and talking out?
No. Like, never me by name, I guess.
Okay. Do you remember what any of the stories were about?
I mean, not really. Not that I really didn't write down. I think probably actually the first time you could probably say that I knew I wanted to write something is in like third grade. We were given an assignment to write a little book. I mean, it's a travesty. It's third grade writing. What do you expect? But it's like I wanted to clearly make this massive epic storyline and somehow tried to fit it in 5 pages. It's a mess. But it's like, here's where we start. Tried to make it about like some knight going to kill a conquering insect king, and say it's weird, but take back some kind of MacGuffin. I don't remember what it was.
It's gonna save the kingdom when he brings it back. And puts it on the throne. Yeah.
Bring back the crops, save the princess, the whole nine kind of deal.
It does it all. It slices, it dices, it brings back the kingdom.
Yeah, it's great. Order now. We'll throw in a second one for free.
For 3 easy payments of a dragon's head, you too can be Conan the Barbarian.
Just a fucking slap chop guy in the 1300s.
Just banging rocks against each other. Look, it does it all. Unga bunga. Just looking at each other, just pointing at them like a lunatic.
1300s, not 300s.
I wasn't great at history. So, when did you start really kind of pushing towards this and not like being like, I like to walk around in the woods and talk to myself? You know, writing this thing in 3rd grade was kind of fun, actually. When did it really start
when
to
did that really
mature?
Hit? Yeah. So when I was... It's all starting to blur. Like 18, 19. I had an idea. It originally started out as an idea for a board game. Like I wanted to make like an RPG game kind of deal because for a while I was very interested in board games and so some kind of I remember playing like a lot of Legendary. I remember playing a handful of stuff with people at a card shop, and so I was like, making my own game would be kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And so I realized I was just building all of this lore, like this canonical lore, and not game systems. And I'm like, I'm trying to make this a game, make it a book. It's like that makes way
people
more sense.
People were asking about your game, and you're just telling them about the characters they can play.
Exactly.
Like,
I'm
but what does the game do? I don't know, but this night, dude,
I'm making
you
this
gotta
pantheon.
hear about how he
But I made like
his
a really
sword?
cool pantheon that I'm pretty proud of. So
yeah.
How does the game play? I have no fucking clue. I don't even know what type of game it is, but let me talk to you about
But I would
the Church
highly
of
recommend picking the knight. He is freaking rad.
Let me talk to you about the Church of Lamech. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior Alamar? Probably not. He's forgotten. Nobody worships that creep.
So, you're not currently... Writing isn't paying the bills currently.
Hell no. Ain't paying shit.
What is the amount that you could, like, if you were talking about wanting to get, like, a sweet, cushy, deal.
Yeah.
What is the lowest amount that you could get offered to quit your day job and write full-time? Writing what you want, obviously getting editing notes and having to, like, go back over it.
Are you talking like a per book kind of deal, like a per annum kind of deal? Like
let's pretend, for sake of intriguing question, that they would pay you hourly or compare it to your job however you want, hourly, salary, I don't know.
Okay.
You know,
like if you, like what static salary would I need to
Yeah.
dump?
Lowest, not preferred.
Like what I need.
What is the bare minimum where you go, yeah, okay,
Just snap done.
yeah,
Probably like 50, 60K.
a year.
Yeah. Because it'd be tight because I'd lose my insurance, which would suck. It's a really good insurance at my current shop, which is nice. So that would something like that probably. It's like kind of comparable salary, but because then I have to spot my own insurance. So
Yeah.
that'd probably be the amount where I'm like, time to go.
Assuming you never got a book deal in this horrible future reality,
Sure.
would you ever stop writing? Like if the devil shows up and goes, "Sorry, kid."
Yeah, this shit
letting
ain't,
you know.
shit ain't happening.
I don't know why the devil's showing up and being a nice guy about this, but he's like,
He's just
"Sorry,
being very
kid."
upfront.
Yeah, he's just like, "Look, man, I've even got limits. I'm not this much of an asshole. I know the way God likes to portray me, but it's never happened, kid.
I'm gonna be real with you.
I'm gonna shoot the real shit with you, son. Yeah, it's never gonna happen. You know, lock it in. It's it's never gonna it's never gonna be your job."
To be okay. So, if a divinity shows up, tells me, I might give up. However, even then, I'd still probably go, you know what?
What if they're fucking with me?
Fuck you. And just
The devil's a tricky son of a bitch. Maybe he's fucking with me.
This is mind games. So I really don't know that I would.
Yeah.
Because it's like so after I wrote my first book, and I was fucking devastated because I thought the world would fucking bend the knee. Like I was the next
world.
Hush.
You just like walk around town and everybody's like, "Oh," and just like
Oh,
just
God.
drops it to one knee.
Yeah, like
My lord, author.
yeah,
You're
like,
like
I thought like
peasants.
I was to quote Venture Brothers, I thought it was hot shit in a champagne glass.
Turns out you were cold diarrhea in a Dixie cup.
Exactly. And you know, nobody gave a shit about a fairly poorly written, shoddily edited novel, and you know, because people make them all the time.
Self-published by a guy in a town most people have never been to or could put on a map.
Yeah. And it kind of punched me in the nuts that it's like, yeah, guess what? And I think in large part because I got spoon-fed the message of you're special growing up.
Yep.
Which parents have been like, yeah, we shouldn't have fucking pushed that one so hard. That was a mistake.
It's a mistake that it's kind of funny. It's the mistake that most every kid that grew up in a good home heard in the years that, we were growing up.
Honestly, what they should have added is just they needed to add one caveat to it.
Yeah. You have to work
You're
fucking
special,
hard.
but you got to work for it.
Yeah.
Like, you can
But
do
so is
anything
everybody else.
if
Yeah.
you put in the fucking elbow grease. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
there needs to be that caveat that it's like, yeah, you don't get shit handed to you. You can earn it. There's nothing you can't earn. There's nothing you can't not earn.
Yeah.
You can obtain anything with enough oomph, with enough fucking drive, with enough with enough deliberateness, enough consistency, enough constitution. You can earn anything.
Yeah. Well,
Shit doesn't get. I mean, within reason, obviously. Like,
yeah.
you can't go reliably become the president. Like shit like that.
Not to continue down this tangent, but yeah, it's one of those interesting things that it's like, yeah, you can earn most everything, but there's still so much in our world that takes luck. It really, you just like, sometimes you just got to get lucky.
Sure. But I mean, it's like I think most things are especially like kind of. Especially situations where it's like you make it or break it kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people that make it aren't necessarily better than people who fail out. I think they're just like more willing to play the war of attrition.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can take another few L's. No problem.
I mean, one of the it's kind of interesting. We've talked about this before, but one of the two stories that idea kind of reminds me of is there's a story of Stephen King who started writing pretty early, if I remember correctly.
He started writing like 14, I think.
Yeah. So like he was still living at home and like still in high school, I think. Started writing and like sending it to, places to get published, and
Old
you know
magazines,
being being young and obviously not good yet. He hadn't matured and hadn't put in the reps and the hours and all that.
Yeah.
They were sending it back and be like, dude, this shit sucks. And like he then, this is the most one of those like old kind of badass stories. He took a nail, nailed it into his wall, which I'm sure his parents were thrilled with. Can you imagine just come home and wham, wham, wham?
Yeah, you started.
What the fuck are you doing to my wall, boy?
Yeah, you just started sticking paper on it like a fucking stack up of bar tabs.
Yeah, like a short order chef, just like sticking them through.
Until it fell off his wall.
Yeah, to the point where there was so much paper that it pulled the nail out of the wall. Yeah. Now, to be fair, it might have been a small nail. It might have been really heavy paper. We don't know. But I like to believe that it was a thick-ass nail and a lot of rejection letters.
Yeah.
But then he didn't give up is the kind of,
I mean, his first published novel was Carrie.
Wow.
That, like, really got big. He wrote for a long time. He was, like, a teacher for a while to pay the bills and shit. And I think he finally got published at like 31 or something, or like big at like 31.
Yeah, like he'd been going at it for over a decade.
Yeah, he'd been going at it a long fucking time.
And like, I mean, the moral to the story and the way he says it, as a writer and as the person that experienced it, it's completely believable. It's just like when you get that many rejection notices. The reason I'm here and other people didn't make it is because instead of giving up, because clearly the world doesn't want me to do this, I just got a bigger nail and said, "The fuck you say," and so basically just kept doing it.
Just kept
like,
hammering
pretty
away.
baller.
I take it back. He was 26, but he's still been writing a dozen years actively.
Yeah. And the other one is Bukowski wrote, and this one was ridiculous. Is he wrote for decades before, and he didn't get. I think he started writing pretty aggressively in his like late 20s, early 30s. I don't think he got published of any amount.
Like
50s.
52 or something.
Yeah, like he took a long time, and it's not that he wasn't good, although maybe he wasn't.
He also took a long time off too.
Yeah, he took a fair amount of time off, but he came back and
he came back after like an accident. Like I think he got hit by a car.
Yeah,
or like a car accident or something.
But I mean, he was still writing for a lot of that time, and was like sending it. Like I know he took a while and tried to. I think it was like he tried a different occupation before ending it back up, either ending back up at the post office or ending up at the post office, and then he ended up writing again. And I mean, it was still like a long time, and it took somebody basically somewhere between giving up and being like, maybe, and just kind of giving him a shot, and it like soared. And like that's and it's still, even after that though, like when he started getting published, it still took a long time for him to get the kind of big fame, that he is like lauded now. And but I mean, he has the best headstone of anybody, which
don't try.
Don't try, which sounds insanely hardcore, but the full sentiment behind it was don't try, because like trying leads to failure. Just basically, he was like the kind of poet's version of the Nike, tagline. It's basically just do it, but he puts in like a subversive stance, if you will. All right, so what are you peskily peeved about?
Time travel in movies and books. It's terrible. It's a disaster.
Wait, why? How is it terrible?
9 times out of 10, it's just a nightmare. It's a mess. It doesn't take into account consequences. It forgets that things like the grandfather paradox exist.
All right, hold on. Before you get spinning up too much, what is the grandfather paradox?
Grandfather paradox is if you go backwards in time, and if you go back in time to kill your grandfather can't have died, because if your grandfather died, your father wouldn't have been born, which means you wouldn't have been born.
It wouldn't just make you fade out of existence?
No, because if you faded out of existence, your grandfather didn't die, so therefore you couldn't have gone back to kill him, so he wouldn't have died, so your father would be born. You see how this is a paradox, right?
It's starting to become clearer by the moment.
Yeah, it's So it's the kind of concept that going backwards in time leads to consequences in the future that are unforeseen, and oftentimes kind of undo themselves by virtue. Provided you don't want to go into any kind of theory regarding a multiverse and split the alternate realities, and I don't want to go off the trail too much, because most people that are writing time travel are definitely not taking that into account or trying to allude to the fact that there are multiple options. Occasionally people do. They get a pass because they're making a point to give themselves an out.
Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon? Perfect. Infinite timelines, infinite possibilities. He leans into it constantly. He reminds the audience constantly. He also doesn't do time travel. He just ruins worlds and picks a new one.
Exactly. But like that is the epitome of like the opposite of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Somebody that sees the line and plays accordingly.
Yeah.
You're talking about the people that have basically like it as an object and don't think about its repercussions, such as.
So let's talk about Tenet.
Let's
talk about Tenet. Christopher Nolan, the off chance you hear this, I like you. I like your movies. The fuck were you thinking? I like Inception for all the weird kind of inconsistency and incongruency in the movie. But what the fuck were you thinking with Tenet? The whole mechanic is that you can start going backwards in time, which means you can run into yourself. But things also go backwards, so like bullets fly back into the gun.
So you can shoot them again.
Ish. They're called inverted, and like... So at one point, for example, the main character
Spoilers.
fights himself. Yep, spoilers, I'm sorry, but I can't get into why this drives me absolutely bananas if I don't give spoilers, so sorry, people. The main character...
Yeah, they've been warned.
Fucking fights himself. He literally gets in a fist fight with himself. But it's chronological. It's a linear time stream. So the main character knows that he's gonna fucking run into himself in a fucking hallway. Why doesn't he just go around the hallway? Is he deprived of agency when he starts inverting, which is what the backwards mechanic is called?
Like, it's Calvinism at its finest.
Like it's so. It's either this is a pre-recorded loop, which case, dumb, or people are just stupid and don't think about, like, I can just avoid this and change things. But you can't, because I guess you're locked into the loop because you already fought himself in a hallway once. So, because there's no alternate reality, you're just fucking forced and compelled like some giant puppeteer fucking dragging the strings along. Because you have locked yourself in with this singular fucking time stream. Bullshit.
So you're saying you don't believe in predestination? Is that what you're telling me? You just don't believe in predestination?
I have a goddamn aneurysm.
Are there ones other than like the Dan Harmon kind of sidestep of it's time travel but it's not wink that you think do it right, or
totally
are they
chill with? There's a couple. One of the few examples of linear time travel that I'm okay with is actually in Harry Potter, because J.K. Rowling does a magnificent job of setting herself up breadcrumbs to account for them doing shit at the same time. Super clever. And she even includes the clause of do not be seen by yourself, because you'll think something really wild is happening.
Yeah.
Super clever. Super well done. Let's not pretend to think about the implications of time travel in a magical universe, but, as far as isolated incident in that story, super well done. The other option is go fucking hard left and just go wild. And just put, like, fuck consequences. Let's get crazy. And that would be Doctor Who, where you, like, people meet people out of order. You've got, like, people disappear from their time stream and basically show up weeks later having aged. Like, they don't give a fuck. And I am wholeheartedly on board because it's goofy, it's wild, and it knows it.
So, in your opinion, you either need to... let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You either need to go Doctor Who and just go, yeah, fuck it, who cares? This is fiction. Stuff doesn't need to make sense. And just, like, full embrace that.
Go
or
full bore.
when it comes to stuff like Harry Potter, you either need to like kind of establish boundaries, the mechanics, and have it be as logical as it can be, while still obviously being ridiculous.
Yeah, like it.
As I mean,
If you're gonna play
as
by
as a
rules,
writer and as somebody that explores fiction, like one of the things that like I agree the time turner scene in Harry Potter. This is not a spoiler. You motherfuckers should have read the book by now, for the record.
it's like 20 years old.
Yeah. In that circumstance, while being awesome, and like I do definitely agree, like the breadcrumbs, and you know the way it's been set up, when it gets revealed, it makes a lot of sense, and like the rules like are very structured. That being said, doesn't it ever then piss you off for the rest of the series how the time turner never comes back into play,
Never
even
shows
though
back.
it would be stupid helpful in a lot of the scenarios that they end up in.
Yeah, most things should never invent time travel because it erodes consequences. Um, I think most things that try to be kind of grounded and have time travel in it are super hard to pull off once you introduce the idea of time travel because nothing is fucking consequences anymore. Like
It kind of like it kind of reminds me of the sort of idea of so before, I don't remember what year it was, they had never really killed a superhero in any comic books, and then I think it was like in the 80s or something like that, there's this comic, I don't know if it's called this, but it's basically called Death of Superman, where Superman dies, and they legit killed him in the comic, and people lost their motherfucking minds,
Yep.
and like sent in hate mail and lost their shit to the point, and I don't think this was pre-planned. I think it was a response to the hate that they literally brought the character back to life. Like they were going to straight murk him and just leave him dead, and it was going to be the most like ballsy, writing decision to just like kill the main hero of one of the number one selling comics, I think, on the planet at that time, and just leave him dead. But after they brought him back to life because of the fan outrage and or writing decision, then it's like, oh, death is not the end.
Yeah, it very much opened the gateway for like kill a character, find a way to bring it back.
Yeah.
And also, people
Well, it
actually
also it cheapened death in writing,
made it irrelevant.
especially comic stores. Yeah.
And for the record, DC took a massive hit after that, and they have never quite recovered after bringing Superman back because people felt cheated. Because like there was kind of initial like freak out, like you can kill Superman, like that's an option, and then just like everyone kind of reeled and shit their pants, and DC made buku bucks off of it, and then when he came back, everyone felt kind of betrayed. But yeah, like you said, the box is open, and there was no putting a lid back on it.
Yeah. If you do it once, you can do it again.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But is there... So for time travel, do you think it's like that? Or do you think that if, it meets one of your two criteria, that it's acceptable for you as a viewer?
I think if it meets the criteria, it's like acceptable. I really don't like it. Like in the case of the Time Turner, for example, I don't.
You think they did it well, but it's not. It's like a C minus. It's like it passes, but I'm not in love with it.
In isolation, it's terrific. It's really well done. But when you consider the implications for the grander story, well, why don't we just pick it up? Like, there's so many things you could undo. There's so many characters you can just go save.
Do you think it'd be better if somehow it got destroyed? Do you think that would make it? Obviously there's the argument that they could just build another one, but if it was like some artifact, like a Horcrux of sorts, if it had been destroyed, do you think that makes the story?
I mean, if they go like with the kind of Philosopher's Stone approach, right? Where it's like, I mean, it's like immortality, but it's like, well, it's expendable, and the guy who makes it has decided he's not making another one, and no one else knows how to. It's like, okay, fine. Like it. I mean, we can write that one out. Sure. So yeah, if we'd done something like if there was only one Time Turner, now why they would give it to a third-year student, who fucking knows? But
that's the best part, is they're like giving it to basically like sophomore. And they're like, yeah, here you go, most powerful thing arguably in our universe. Knock yourself out. It's like she could like that. It's like so insane.
You could commit crimes across the globe.
Yeah.
By yourself. Mm-hmm. I think the Doctor Who one is as much time travel as there is in the show. It's less of a plot device or less of a plot mechanic and more of a plot device to just show up at weird places and do weird shit.
But
It's
I
just
mean, one of the major parts of that show, and I think this makes a genuine difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't watched nearly that much Doctor Who, is that the show itself, while having moments that are very heartwarming and very serious, by and large, just does insanely weird shit.
oh yeah,
And that's kind of the show.
It's a wacky sci-fi
Yeah.
comedy drama romp. Like it
Yeah.
it is
but
unrepentantly wacky.
Yeah, but I think that kind of plays into it. If
Sure.
like in Rick and Morty, it's like it could just be time travel, and I think a lot of people would forgive it because it's like, yeah, the point of the show isn't to make logical, like coherent sense. It's
Absolutely.
yeah, but
It's
fun.
bonkers.
That being said, I think it actually does partially because like they avoid pitfalls like time travel. Instead, have multiple universe
Sure.
hoo-haws going on. Anyway,
Multiple universe hoo-ha.
you heard it here first, folks. Multiple universe hoo-haws. All right. Well, thank you very much for your pesky peeve. We're going to throw it to our second break, but make sure to come back, folks, for the lightning round. See you in a bit. Have you ever just looked at fried carbs on a plate and thought, I need to eat those, but it doesn't taste all that appetizing? Introducing catsup. Catsup is a sugary and red syrupy paste that'll overshadow any unappreciated taste. Simply douse the unpreferred tasting object and ingest. Mmm. Thanks, catsup. All right. Thank you, folks, for sticking around through that second commercial break. And welcome back to the lightning round. Eli, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Fingers on buzzers. Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Oh my.
Favorite dollar menu item?
Usually a budget chicken sandwich.
Caffeine or alcohol?
Caffeine.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
What kind of fucking question is that?
One that should get answered.
I'm gonna get flack for this. No.
Would you rather step on a Lego shoeless or a cow pie and new shoes late for a date?
Let's take the Lego shoeless. I can deal with pain. It's hard to
Bow
it's hard to go
tie,
stitch.
bow tie or suspenders?
Bow tie.
First rated R movie you saw?
Fight Club, I think.
Ooh, good answer. Biggest celebrity crush?
Da, ba-da, ba-da. Who's the person who played Mystique in the first X-Men movies?
The person that played Mystique in the first X-Men movies. Is there a god?
Yes.
Are we alone in the universe?
Probably not.
What or how much was the most expensive meal you've ever had?
Independently or as a total tab?
Sure.
Independently, probably like $90. Total tab for the tape. Total tab for everyone is like 600.
If you had the power to see the future but could not change it, would you use it?
Fuck no.
Red or blue?
Blue.
What yes or no lightning round question would you like to ask me and have added to the future lightning round questions?
For $500,000, would you give up film writing?
No. No.
Okay.
That one doesn't really work well on a read.
I mean, you can just adjust it for whatever they're passionate about, right?
Yeah, for $500,000, would you give up your?
Would you give up your passion?
Would you give up your passion? Yeah, all right. All right. Well, thank you, folks, for sticking through to the end. Thank you, Eli, for being the guest. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Recommendations, places people could find you or your content?
If you want to go back and read the web serial I wrote and finished up, you can find it at shillitonexiles.com.
Spell that.
TRILLODAN exiles.com.
Where should they look for any of your content moving forward? Or a way to get in contact with you if they're interested about finding out more about your content, and or where they can buy it.
Oh, I need to up my social media game, so I got shit going on. For right now, go there. I will eventually be making myself a proper, like, kind of author page and whatnot for YouTube, probably, or YouTube, for maybe a Twitter handle as I start writing and trying to publish my next book that I'm writing, and short stories and stuff in the future.
In the meantime, stay tuned to trillidonexiles.com.
Yeah, do that.
All right. Thanks, listeners. And remember, folks, sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at it. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.